Imagine a 20-story building that's 360 meters long, as wide as a football field, housing 8,000 people. Inside, there are restaurants, pools, cinemas, shopping centers, and even a park with live trees. And all of this is cruising across the ocean at 40 km/h. Sounds crazy? Welcome to the world of modern cruise ships, the most complex vehicles ever created by humans. The question that puzzles everyone who sees these giants: how on earth does this massive thing not sink? And why don't you feel the rocking inside, even though there are waves several meters high outside? Today, we'll take apart a cruise ship and discover the engineering magic behind the shine and luxury. Let's start with the most obvious question. Why does a ship weighing 230,000 tons, like 40,000 elephants or 1,500 blue whales, float calmly on water and not sink? The answer is simple. Archimedes' principle. Remember from school? An object submerged in a fluid is buoyed up by a force equal to the weight of the fluid displaced. But here's the trick. A modern cruise ship isn't a solid chunk of metal. It's a giant box with air inside. Imagine taking a regular steel ball and dropping it in water. It sinks. But if it's not just a metal shell. It's a multi-layered structure made of steel plates up to 50 mm thick, forming a huge watertight capsule. Inside, there are numerous decks, cabins, corridors, and empty spaces filled with air. But the most interesting part is at the bottom of the ship. There's a double bottom, 2 layers of metal with a gap between them. If the hull is breached by an iceberg or reef, water will only fill the lower compartment, while the upper one stays dry. The ship remains afloat. This is a lesson humanity learned after the Titanic tragedy. But there's another secret: ballast. At the very bottom of the ship are huge tanks filled with seawater. They're not just there for show. They regulate the ship's stability. If the ship tilts to the left, an automatic system pumps water from the left ballast tank to the right. The ship levels out. This happens constantly, without human intervention. Now imagine. In front of you is a metal city weighing 250,000 tons. It needs not only to stay afloat, but also to accelerate to 40 km/h. And it has to do so without anyone inside feeling vibrations, without a single plate falling in the restaurant, without a cocktail spilling by the pool. Underwater, at the very back of the ship, are real monsters, propellers up to 6 meters in diameter. That's like a 3-story building. Each blade weighs several tons and is cast from a special bronze-nickel alloy. But what makes these propellers spin? Here's where it gets interesting. Deep within the ship, on several lower decks, is the engine room, the heart of the ship. There, diesel engines the size of buses operate. On large liners, there can be 4 to 6 of them. Each develops up to 20,000 horsepower. But here's the paradox. These engines don't drive the propellers directly. Why? Because modern cruise ships use a diesel-electric system. The engines turn generators that produce electricity. And it's the electricity that powers electric motors connected to the propellers. Why such complexity? First, it offers flexibility. The captain can turn on 2 engines for economical cruising or all 6 for maximum speed. Second, it reduces vibration. Electric motors run smoother than diesels. Third, all the remaining energy goes to the ship's needs: lighting, air conditioning, elevators, kitchens, heated pools. A cruise ship is a floating city that consumes as much electricity as a small town with a population of 50,000. And all this electricity is generated right on board. But there's another trick: thrusters. Imagine needing to park a 360-meter giant in a narrow port. A rudder and propellers won't cut it. That's why bow and stern thrusters are installed, like huge fans built into the hull. They create lateral thrust, allowing the ship to move sideways or turn in place. Thanks to them, the captain can, the ship stays afloat and can sail, but inside there's a real engineering marvel, a full-fledged city infrastructure. And we'll start with the most important, water. Every day, a cruise ship uses about 800 to 1,200 tons of fresh water. That's roughly 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. People shower, flush toilets, drink, cook, wash dishes. Where does all this water come from in the middle of the ocean? Liners produce fresh water themselves, right from the salty ocean. They use desalination plants. Seawater is taken in, heated to boiling in vacuum chambers, where water boils at just 60 degrees. Steam condenses into fresh water, and the salt remains in concentrate and is discharged back into the sea. The whole process repeats continuously. A modern cruise liner can produce up to 1,500 tons of fresh water per day. That's more than needed, so some water goes into reserve tanks. If the desalination units break down, the reserve will last for several days. But that's not all. Water from showers, sinks, and laundry needs to go somewhere. The ship has a full-fledged wastewater treatment system, like city treatment plants, only compact. Water goes through several filtration stages, is disinfected with ultraviolet light, and returns to the ocean clean. Strict international regulations prohibit dumping anything into the sea. This is monitored closely. Now about food. On a large cruise liner, there can be 20-30 restaurants, bars, and cafes feeding 8,000 passengers and 2,000 crew members. That's 10,000 mouths 3 times a day, plus snacks, plus drinks. Several tons of food are consumed daily. Deep on the lower decks are giant refrigerated chambers the size of a large supermarket. Thousands of kilograms of meat, fish, vegetables, fruits, and dairy products are stored there. Different zones maintain different temperatures, -20 for freezing, +4 for fresh products. And there are industrial kitchens on the ship that can simultaneously prepare hundreds of dishes. Imagine a regular restaurant kitchen. Now multiply its size by 50. There are huge stoves, ovens the size of small rooms, industrial dishwashers capable of washing 10,000 plates an hour. Every day on a cruise liner's kitchen, roughly 20 tons of fresh produce, 10,000 eggs, 5,000 liters of milk, 2 tons of flour, 1,000 kilos of meat. And all this needs to be cooked, served, then cleaned up, dishes washed, trash taken out. That's why large liners have an army of chefs, waiters, cleaners, an entire industry within the ship. Now imagine, 10,000 people produce tons of trash daily. Plastic, paper, food waste, glass, metal. What to do with all this in the middle of the ocean? In the past, everything was simply thrown overboard. But now that's strictly forbidden. Modern cruise ships have a complex waste recycling system, almost like on land, only more compact. Organic waste is shredded and disinfected. Only then can it be dumped into the sea far from shore. Plastic, glass, and metal are compacted into bales and stored until the next port, where they're sent for recycling. There are also more exotic solutions. Some liners install incinerators where waste burns at temperatures above 1,000 degrees. Only ash remains, which is easy to store. Remember we talked about ballast tanks? Well, that's just the beginning. Modern cruise ships are equipped with active stabilization systems that combat rolling in real time. On the sides of the hull, underwater, are huge stabilizers, like airplane wings, only underwater. Each can be up to 10 meters long. When the ship starts to roll from a wave, the computer instantly calculates the tilt angle and adjusts the stabilizers to create a counteracting force. The ship levels out. It's like riding a bike. When you start to fall left, you lean right and balance. Only on a ship, it's done by automation. And it does this thousands of times a minute, responding to every wave. Thanks to these systems, even in seas with 4 to 5 point waves, 2-3 meters high, you barely feel the rocking inside the ship. You can walk around, drink coffee, exercise, just like on land. But if the storm is really serious, 8 to 9 points, waves 10 meters high, the stabilizers can't fully cope. We already talked about the diesel-electric system, but let's dig deeper. On a large cruise liner, the electricity consumption is astronomical. Engines and propellers, 60% of all energy, air conditioning and ventilation, 20% lighting, 5% kitchens and refrigerators, 5% elevators, escalators, pools, entertainment, 10% 6 diesel generators run around the clock. Each can power a small town, but they're not all turned on at once. That's inefficient. Usually, 3 to 4 generators run, the rest are in reserve. If one breaks down, a reserve one automatically starts. The system is so reliable that a power outage on a cruise ship is almost impossible. But that's not all. Some modern liners have started installing solar panels on open decks. They can't power the entire ship, but they significantly reduce the load on the generators. Ecology is becoming important even at sea. Now let's talk about what no one wants to think about on a cruise. What if something goes wrong? How to evacuate 10,000 people from a sinking ship in the middle of the ocean? After the Titanic tragedy and the Costa Concordia disaster in 2012, cruise ship safety rules were tightened to the max. Now every ship must have lifeboats and rafts for 125% of the people on board. So if there are 10,000 people on the ship, there must be 12,500 rescue spots. Lifeboats on modern liners aren't old wooden boats, but they're completely sealed, have their own engines, life support systems, water and food supplies for several days. Even if the ship capsizes, the lifeboat automatically detaches and floats up. But launching dozens of such lifeboats quickly is no easy task. That's why special davits are installed around the ship's perimeter, capable of lowering all lifeboats simultaneously in 20-30 minutes. And every passenger on the first day of the cruise must attend a drill. Everyone puts on life jackets and goes to their muster stations. It's not a formality. It's a rehearsal in case of real trouble. By the way, about life jackets. Modern models are equipped with reflective strips, whistles, automatic lights that turn on when in contact with water. This makes it easier for rescuers to find people in the dark and in waves. The captain's bridge of a modern cruise liner is like NASA's mission control. Dozens of screens, sensors, systems. Everything is automated to the max, but the final decision is always made by a human. On the bridge there are GPS system with meter accuracy radars that see other ships up to 50 kilometers away, echo sounders measuring depth under the keel, weather stations predicting the weather autopilot that holds course without human intervention, communication systems with satellite. The map shows the ship's position in real time, depths, reefs, currents, other ships, weather. Everything updates every second. The captain doesn't just turn the wheel like in old movies. He gives commands to the computer. Hold course 180 degrees, speed 20 knots. And the automation does everything itself. Adjusts engine speed, propeller angle, stabilizers, ballast. Passengers only see waiters, entertainers, maids. But behind the scenes, a huge army of people ensures the ship's life. On a large cruise liner, the crew can reach 2,000 people, captain and officers, 50 people engineers and mechanics, 200 people chefs and kitchen staff, 400 people waiters and bartenders, 500 people maids and cleaners, 500 people entertainers, musicians, actors, 100 people medics, 20 people security, 50 people Other staff, 180 people. These people work 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, for several months straight, without days off. They live in cabins on the lower decks, where rooms are the size of a closet. They have their own dining areas, their own rest zones, separate from passengers. Salaries vary greatly. Officers from Europe and the US can earn $10,000, $15,000 a month. Maids from the Philippines or Indonesia, $800, $200. For many, it's the only way to earn and support their family. Here's where the unpleasant part begins. Cruise ships are an environmental disaster. Each large liner burns up to 250 tons of fuel a day. That's like 10,000 cars running simultaneously. Diesel engine emissions contain sulfur, nitrogen oxides, carbon dioxide, soot. One cruise liner emits as many harmful substances in a day as 1 million cars. The International Maritime Organization has started imposing strict regulations. Since 2020, only low-sulfur fuel is allowed. Many companies are installing scrubbers, exhaust gas cleaning systems that capture harmful substances. Some new liners have started using liquefied natural gas, LNG, instead of diesel. It burns cleaner, with 20–30% fewer emissions. But there are only a few such ships. Retrofitting the fleet costs billions of dollars. There are more futuristic projects. Hybrid ships with batteries, hydrogen-powered ships, even ships with nuclear reactors. Yes, there were such in the USSR. But mass implementation is a thing of the distant future. But the captain can always take manual control, especially when docking in ports. There, experience and intuition are needed. The cruise industry is one of the fastest growing in the world. Every year, new giants are launched. The Icon of the Seas is currently being built. It will be able to carry 10,000 passengers. That's like an entire city district. But with growth comes criticism. Environmentalists are sounding. Expedition cruises to the Arctic and Antarctic on small ships are emerging. Luxury yacht cruises, themed cruises for music, science, sports fans. Technology isn't standing still either. Soon we'll see autonomous ships without crews, fully electric liners, ships powered by renewable energy. A cruise liner is an engineering marvel that we take for granted. We see the shiny decks, pools, restaurants. But behind it is the work of thousands of people and hundreds of engineers who designed and built a floating city. It's a symbiosis of dozens of technologies: shipbuilding, electrical engineering, hydrodynamics, automation, architecture, design. All of it works as a single organism, ensuring the safety and comfort of passengers. Next time you see a cruise liner, remember, it's not just a big boat. It's the pinnacle of human engineering thought, embodied in metal.